Okay, I'm gonna start now. Okay, it's starting. So, hey everyone, my name is Rafael, and yeah, welcome to my channel. So today will be a bit different. I won't be traveling, I won't be hiking or anything, but I'll be talking about something that's, it's just kind of discussions that are very touchy for some people, but I think it needs to be had. So I have with me a friend of mine. Her name is Nia, and we did a podcast together, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, so we had like a good discussion together. I just thought, oh my God, we're gonna have a discussion on, wait, hold on, Eurocentric Beauty Standard. And I just said like, why, it's just with what happened in 2020, and we talked about Black Lives Matter, and I think people are starting to have the discussion around, racism, colorism, and so forth. I just said, why not have a good discussion on Eurocentric Beauty Standard? And yeah, I'm going to let Nia present herself. So go ahead, present yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raphael, for having me on here. I'm really excited to have this conversation, mostly since it's also something that I'm very passionate about and I'm excited to delve into it. But to give a little details about myself, I'm a sociology major. I'm based in Canada. I'm also a researcher and I also am a podcaster. And I had an episode with Raphael about a while ago in 2020, and I think you guys can check it out under the link on his site. But yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to open up more as we get into the episode.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, so we're gonna begin. Before we begin, I just want to tell you guys that we're having, these are opinions, and well, there will be some fact maybe because we have a sociology major here, but but we're having a discussion, and we wanna, it's just a conversation, just like my channel is this conversation with Rafi, and yeah, it's just a conversation with Rafi and Iyad at this point. And yeah, it's just we're just talking about it. So hopefully, anybody who watches this vlog don't get offended or angry. It's just the reality of life and a reality that black people, because as you can see, we're black, we've dealt with, and we try and yeah, it's just that. So if you want to comment, be kind on the comments. No need to get angry. It's just conversations, and we want to, learn from each other. And yeah, so let's begin. So my first question is a very, for me, it's pretty obvious as we discuss about Eurocentric Beauty Standard. For me, it begins, when we're young. As young people, there are things that happen that we see that makes us feel uncomfortable when we're young, but we can't quite put in words what it is. So my question is, as a child, do you remember any situation that made you feel as if your skin was not beautiful?
Yeah, I think I have a million examples I could give you, but to give a few, I think honestly it would be in in high school and especially in elementary school. When you end up being, for example, being surrounded by mostly white people, or maybe you're the only black woman or black girl in your friend group, you'll always end up feeling like you're not pretty enough. And I think for me, I noticed that I was always comparing myself and comparing how I looked to the white friends that I had. And I felt in a way that I was not beautiful because I didn't look like them. And it was just obvious that, because what they look like is, quote unquote, what beauty is, I didn't feel like I, could even claim, the title of what beauty is, because it's just like when you look at how different people interact with you, or how differently people treat you. Like another thing, which is so common, um, young black girls, especially dark skinned girls, are treated, very differently. they are often treated like adults, and on top of that, they are like viewed in a different way. And so for me, I even remember how when teachers would speak to me differently compared to like my white counterparts, they'd be more sweet and more like kind to like my other white classmates. But whereas with me, it was more aggressive and just like they didn't speak to me as a child. And so like stuff like that, like which is very much linked to colorism, contributed to, you know, making me think, why am I being treated this way? And then also just like with beauty in general, like because of my dark skin, I never felt like I could claim being beautiful because what beautiful meant was being white at the time. And because I
Mm,
wasn't white, I couldn't feel like I could view myself as beautiful.
yeah. I mean, everything you say just makes sense to me because I remember when I was younger, basically, whenever I was also in a school with mostly white students, basically. Then, of course, when I came to Canada, then there was like a mixture, of course, but still that idea of blackness as beautiful wasn't put forth, right? I remember being with as a kid also, children saying, "Oh," it happened to me like once or twice. They were kids saying, "Oh, black skin, it's not really pretty," and they were just like, it was like just casually said it. And as a young child, I didn't know what that meant, right? But just to see how Eurocentric beauty standard affects I would say, and then maybe you would agree with me, affects more black women and to be even black dark skinned women. I remember when I would, because I used to draw a lot. When I was young, I used to draw like clothings and I used to draw models, just models and everything. I would draw my mom because I believe mom to be the most beautiful human, on earth, of course. But it's my mom. That's why I talk like that. But I remember when I was young, I drew her, but with Eurocentric features. So the nose, like the long wavy hair that blows within the wind. And I remember just showing it to my mom all the time. My mom never really, even the skin tone, I would make it lighter than it is, right? And I remember my mother telling me she never really got angry or anything. She just told me, "Oh well, that doesn't look like me. This is not me." And as my mom would say this very calmly, then I started to draw, as she was a black woman, right? But then when you look at all those microaggressions, all those messages, I think that we get sometimes, it's only normal that if we're in an atmosphere where the minority, of course, we're gonna look at the majority and say, oh, okay, so if they said, dark skin is not beautiful or whatever, of course I'm going to try and like lean towards, that white Eurocentric beauty standard. And yeah, so what you say just makes perfect sense, right? And even, I think I'm rambling, but
No, everything you're saying, like it just made me think about how it's interesting how we're taught to draw white features before our own. And like
yeah,
if we think about how like it's so easy to like know how to draw wavy hair, but we can't draw an afro. Or
yeah,
like we can't like different shapes of like black African noses, but we can draw a white nose. We can
yeah,
draw thin lips, but we can't like draw like the different things that make like the black features. And it's just like we, in a way, like unconsciously, we know how to draw white people more than we know how to draw ourselves and what we look
yeah,
like, which is so concerning in a way because it's like, how, like what that can even change what we think about when we think of what art should look like or what beauty should look like in art. And then like it just comes down to, so why are we taught more to appreciate certain features or just like being taught to know how to draw certain people better. And I think
Yeah.
even how, for example, like we're taught more like with how to like make a white person's skin tone with paint, but like we're not taught about like how to like learn how to paint like someone with darker skin or brown skin or like it's just like so many like people deem it as being too complicated or too hard, but like
Yes.
paint white skin is like it's easy, it's more pretty, it's more like, and so like just like using the language that's used to try to avoid drawing, black people, but like white people just being like the norm when it comes to what art is, I think is like really interesting.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's easy, right? As I was, I remember when I would draw, and that's when I really kept to myself when I understood a bit more what I was doing, because I was growing up, I understood a bit more as I was drawing, or like with my mom first when I was like drawing my mom like this, and I understood how the way I was doing it. And then when it was time to draw, like my mom with her hair, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just the way she looked like, and just drawing her hair for me was like, in my mind, it was like, it's difficult, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's just this, I don't know how I can explain this. I think it's just this mindset, that was, I don't know if I can say was put in me. I don't know. I don't want to go into this, but yeah, it's like this mindset that I had. Then it was like it's difficult to draw black hair. And just on the topic of black hair, I remember I was in one school. I was in one school. I've been in a few schools, of course, but I remember once I was in a school and there was a girl who had an afro. And I remember the teacher saying, and the teacher said with a big smile, and it was just like nice in the way she said it, right? So there wasn't like an aggression to it, but she
Yeah.
said, "Oh, since you have, your afro, honey, won't you go in the back?" And then she went in the back, and I don't want to name names, so we'll say the white girl was Anna, right? So Anna, go in the front. And it was done, so casually, just like, with so much kindness and no aggression. But I still remember at that moment, I was just telling myself, hmm,
Yeah, this
since you
doesn't look.
have an afro, you should go
Mhm.
in the back. You know, it was interesting. Well, I don't know if it's
No,
interesting. Oh,
great. It is interesting. And I think what is something like we are learning like to have the language for is how I would say covert racism was what she was doing. It's
mm,
like it's painted over with like smiling and like kind, not kind words actually. Like they're smiling and they're like using they're speaking in a neutral tone, and so it's like it doesn't come off as aggression. And like you are like kind of wondering, is this wrong or am I making it up in my head? And I think that's just like the worst kind of racism because it's more like you end up blaming yourself in the situation and thinking maybe I'm over exaggerating what happened. Like
yeah,
that happens. That definitely happened so much to us when we were younger, and then finally noticing that's what happened.
yeah. And then, as we grew up, of course, we come into, our teenagers and all those things, we were influenced by the media, of course, right? And of course, we know that, for me, I think this obsession or this envy to put forth Eurocentric beauty standards started when we were young. I mean, I remember now as a young kid, I remember some stuff, but then we look at the media, right? So my question seems very, simplistic, but it's interesting to ask also. So, do you believe the media plays a role in putting forward Eurocentric beauty standards?
Yes, 1,000%. I definitely do. I honestly think that like the media is it's a huge role mostly because like people perpetuate what is shown in the media. Because it'd be a different situation if the media alone was all that we saw, but no one was actually paying attention and repeating what they saw in the media. What makes things worse is like people like respond to what they see in the media and then play it out. And it's like how eventually you notice that in the media, it was white women that are the beauty standard. And then eventually it shifted to lighter skinned women being the beauty standard. And then you kind of notice, okay, so if there's no darker skinned women anywhere here, what does that mean exactly? And then you notice then, because there's like a certain group of people that are put on a pedestal, everyone is like basically putting them on a pedestal in real life and ignoring the people who don't fit that image. And then it's like if you are told your entire life, not even by someone but by actions, like everyone else around you is getting the attention that you're not getting, that's going to bother you. And I think something that people tell dark skinned women too much is you shouldn't worry too much, about what other people think. And like we're human beings, like we need like compliments, we need like affirmations, we need that from other people. And like the only reason some people have this superiority complex is because people put them on that pedestal to feel that way. And like something that happened with my friend's little sister was she's lighter skinned and she has a student in her class who is darker skinned,
Yeah.
and her and this little girl were both fighting, and then she just said, well, at least I'm not dark. And it's just like there's there's certain messages that kids get that you don't have to say out loud, but they just see how people, I would say, treat people of different colors. And like she probably picked up on how, because she's lighter, she's favored more or treated better and those types of things. But even like I think with colorism and also how society perpetuates the issues that we have currently, it's just a huge issue because with darker skinned women, something that Gabrielle Union said beautifully was you can't self love your way out of a world that hates you. And
Mm.
I think that's very true because you can have all the confidence in the world, but if everyone around you is constantly trying to convince you that you're not enough or that you're not pretty enough or all these things, how are you, like of course you're going to feel a certain way. And like I think people are just like not really understanding that like we're because we're human beings, we need to experience what being affirmed is like in the same way other people have that. And like it shouldn't have to just simply be you're insecure, you're all these things, but it's like you don't know what it's like to have to be positioned next to other people who are placed on a pedestal and then being told that, you know, you should be that you should be ashamed of yourself that you don't look like them and that your life isn't worthy enough because you don't look like them. And those types of things, are very dangerous for darker skinned women to have to try to like ignore.
Yeah. And just to talk about being being when we tell like you have to you said perfectly when you said that you mustn't take it personally, right? I find that there is this very and tell me if I'm wrong, right? I always believe that I always want to learn, of course, but in personally I find there is this danger when we ask, and it happened for the longest time, black, especially dark skinned women, to be strong. There was always this message: be strong, you're strong, the strong black woman, the strong black woman. And then there's like this linear, I don't know if I'm saying it properly, but there's like this linear message of the dark skinned black woman has to be strong. And so when we tell them, oh, when you say, in the media there's no representation, there's no, and it does affect me a certain way. Don't worry, be strong, be strong. And there's like this, I find this pervasive message, this And for me, this dangerous message of asking Black women to always be strong all the time, like we're humans, we have full of emotions. I mean, yeah, being not like it's nice to somebody tells you and say, "Oh, you're really beautiful, you're pretty." I mean, mind you, I think we also want to be viewed as we want to see our intelligence and the qualities that we have, and I fully agree on that point, right? But just say, well, you're beautiful, or you turn on the television, and what you see on television is not always that same image of that Black woman who is, says things how it is, and just like, that's blah 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 blah. I said this, I say that, but she also has emotions, a full range of emotions, and yeah, am I making sense? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are. Like, I think that's a really good point that you brought up, like showing Black people and Black women as complex people, because it's who we are. And I think that when especially with the media, it places Black women and even Black people in general into this
Yeah.
box. One thing. It's like you're either the millionaire, you're either the single mother, or you're either it's just like, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with those with people who are single mothers or millionaires or whatever,
Yeah.
or people are in prison or whatever. But it's like that's that's the same thing for every other racial group. There's people that fall into that same category, but it's like very intentional when we think about how only Black people. This is very like emphasized that this is like the only ways that we can be seen, but never just as like regular human beings who just like are don't have complicated lives like the ways they exaggerate it. And
Mhm.
like, I mean, I'd love to know your thoughts about it too, but something I think I'm very tired of is like Black pain being like so uh having like it's so highly consumed by other people, and like
Yeah.
it sells so much, and like but seeing Black people happy and seeing Black joy and like just like anything that doesn't have to do with our pain and struggle is just like deemed as like, oh, like I don't think we can sell that to people. But it's also like Black Panther hit like $1 billion in terms of how much they made, like just from revenue, but like that had nothing to do with Black people being portrayed in the ways everyone else has always portrayed us. So it's like you're just choosing not to make those films that Black people, like showing us in a proper light, but like it's just like, like the power the media has to decide, who can be viewed in what way is like really concerning.
Yeah, it's like view us in a different light, right? Like I think you're right, and I just for I love movies like Precious. I love movies like how was that with Lupita Nyong'o? Um,
Oh,
uh,
12 years.
sorry.
Was it 12 Years a Slave she was
Yeah,
in? Or,
yeah. It
oh,
was a
okay.
wonderful movie, it's a beautiful movie, but I find sometimes where the media portrays, again, Black pain also, is always viewed as, the movies like, and don't get me wrong, I think those kind of stories should be told, especially, 12 Years of Slave, it was an important story to be told, but I find like sometimes when you look at the media, it's always like the same narrative, like there's always like the story of the black family or the black individual enslaved and the master, or colonization when we look in Africa, and it's always like that same story, and it's an important story to tell, but sometimes it's nice to see you know blacks in a normal setting, at home, sitting with their mom or with the father or whatever, just having conversation. And yeah, I think it makes it what you say is actually true. Like even with the way we I don't know if I should go there, but yeah, I mean, when we talk about, for example, the continent of Africa, first the way it's presented, Africans, like we never go into, the specific Kenya or Rwanda or Ethiopia, anywhere. It's like Africa. And then they always show that same image of, poverty in Africa, and those kids with the flies flying around and everything. And again, I do. It's important because there is poverty in Africa, and it's important we do discuss about poverty and malnourishment and all that. But there's also other beautiful things. This one I'm happy with the Afrobeat, for example. Nigerians are coming in and showing the music that they from Nigeria and everything. Is people are seeing a different light of Black people, Africans, or but yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, I think I made a little bit. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yes, no, you did. Like, I think it like honestly, like when it does come to how even Africa is portrayed, I understand why like even the criticism that Black Panther had, because it's just that like Africa doesn't have to be, or African countries don't have to be portrayed as like these, advanced, like, it's just that we can exist as our own. There's no need to compete with the West. And I
Yeah,
think that, like, fortunately, what happens a lot with like discourse around like Africa and especially like the diaspora and stuff, like, sometimes people feel this need to try to prove that Africa is not um, an impoverished nation, but it's like there's we can accept that there's poverty. We can, like, we don't have to overemphasize that there's also wealthy people. Like, of course there's wealthy people everywhere, but it's just like this need to try to prove that Africa is not only the image that people see. It's kind of rooted in like in a way just like the same mindset that colonization has made us try to believe in, that like you want to prove so hard that like the continent is equal to the West, but it's like there's no need to compare. Like
yeah.
the
Need to
continent
compare.
is its own by itself, and it's beautiful as itself. And like I think even getting into that, talking about like capitalism and colonialism and all that is its own segment. But I definitely think like people moving away from like trying to compare and like trying to have like trying to create one image that like that can apply to all the countries, which is impossible. It's
Yeah,
definitely like an issue.
yeah. And just like as we go back slowly into the Eurocentric beauty standard, I also just talk about my experience, as a gay Black person in the LGBT plus community. I remember how also Black men, uh, yeah, not just Black men. I mean, Black women also. How we're portrayed sometimes. It's just like, especially before I was with my husband. Of course, the dating scene was just very
Yeah,
difficult. I mean, the things I would hear, like I remember I remember going on a date one time, and then the person came to me and said, "Oh, I like you. You're very beautiful for a Black person," as if it was a compliment. And I remember just telling me, well, like, well, what do you mean? It's like, no, it's just like, I, usually I'm not into Black people. I don't find Black people attractive, but you're different, right? And I was just, I told myself, this is like a backhand I forgot what the saying is, like a backhand
yeah,
compliment.
backhand, yeah, backhanded compliment.
Yeah, it's like a backhanded compliment. And I remember just being, I was like, why would you say, why do you think it's nice to say that to me, right? I'm Black, and you've just painted Black people as just not pretty enough according to your standard. I mean, like, Oh, you're the one who exists and you're supposed to tell me what's beautiful or not, you know? But then when I look into the LGBT plus community, I do find that sometimes there is this view of black not being, desirable, beautiful, and white as, the ultimate beauty, the ultimate beauty standard. Even like the way people would go sometimes, I would go on dating sites and people would say no blacks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have to be nice, you have to be clever, you have to be funny. I love funny people, and no blacks. And of course, you say no Asians, which depends on the person, right? But I was like, so you want somebody that's nice, that's funny, that's kind, but no blacks, you know? So basically, it's just like, there's like this. So what do you see in the blackness that can be funny, nice, or whatever, you know? At the same time, I wasn't particularly offended, because I was just like, I was like, oh, I'm tired. I don't need this, right? But the message that was sent, black is not beautiful. I mean, that's how it was in the LGBT scene. How I imagine the same thing in the, the lack of a better term, heterosexual scene, right?
Oh my God. Like, I honestly, it's like dating is just like so frustrating, honestly. As a dark-skinned woman, it's like the issues that I have with it is like there's a lot of, I would say, a lot of like evaluations you have to have when it comes to who you choose to date. And like for me personally, I'm a very picky person, and I stand in that, and I allow myself to be that. Like for me personally, like I do not tolerate, ignorance in any form. Like I don't want to ever like meet someone or date someone who's, transphobic or homophobic or misogynistic or all these other things, because I'm like, that's not what I am. So I wouldn't want to ever date someone who thinks they can act in that way around me. And so it's like, on top of that, trying to speak with someone who doesn't fall under any of those categories. And then on top of that, it's just like colorism is sort of the common factor when it comes to how well the date may or may not go. Because, like, for example, I usually, I'm pretty open in general when it comes to like who I date. I would say now I'm kind of thinking, more like, I should be careful about what I want in terms of who I want to date. I
Yeah.
know though in general, when the future I'll most likely marry a black man, but in terms of dating, it's been hard in the sense that from black men I've experienced colorism. And then on the other side I've also experienced being fetishized. And it's also like I like, sometimes I don't know like what if dating is worth it sometimes, because there'll be people who it's a great relationship, but then they say something, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore, Like they'll just maybe like just talk about, me being a black woman in like a hypersexualized type of way, or maybe they'll like, call me chocolate or something, or like, it's just that there's certain things that I'm just like, I
Yeah.
can't, talk about. Or, and on top of that, like a common thing that men of all races have is also being misogynistic. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just, I like, there's just only so many things I can really tolerate. And, leave alone physical traits. I'm only naming like just what I look for in terms of character. So it's just like I'm okay with waiting until the right person comes, but it's hard as a black woman because I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, like, I know that I have to be very critical of myself when it comes to who I choose to date.
Yeah.
because I can't just date someone because I like them. Like, as a black person, as a black woman, like, whoever I choose to date is political because uh, because of our racial identity is politicized. So it's just like I have to always go into dating with that mindset that in what ways is dating this person aligned with my politic, and how can I be very critical and maintain my values and integrity when it comes to who I choose to date. And when you really think about the way society's set up and how not a lot of people, are honest about the views that they hold, dating just becomes another issue. So that's kind of like how it is for me in general.
In general, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think for me, it's just I remember I remember uh, when I was dating, of course, and we were talking about just colorism. Especially the LGBT role. The light skinned boy. The dark skinned boy. And I remember I went on dates before I met my husband. Of course, I went on dates, and there were people. I met so many. Uh, Black guys who would talk about lightening their skin. I
Wow.
was, yeah, I wanna, I met a guy who, he, when I went to his place, he did have lightning soap, and I told myself it's this, there is this envy sometimes, just to I'm not saying every black people think like that, but just to see how Eurocentric beauty standard does have an effect on black people. This um, lightning soap, lightning cream, that we see. I think not just in Africa, I think you also see that in India and Asia, basically all of Asia, you see that, and then it does show how this obsession with Eurocentric beauty standard makes it so that some people go to that extreme. I don't know if it's, yeah, we'll say that extreme, or that they resort to that kind of solution. I'm gonna take lightning soap to lighten my skin, and it's just, yeah, it's all very complicating, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like, for me, this is even when I think that when I was younger, I thought about it, but
yeah,
I never with that mostly because it's just like it's too much work, and I thought about you can get skin cancer, all these things, but
yeah.
it's just like there are too many complications that came with it, and I'm like, yeah, it's not really worth it to be honest. And then when I also think about people that do use whitening creams or like bleaching creams, it's like I think about women who live outside the West that do this because it's like
Yeah.
in general, like if you are not of lighter skin, that is also tied to if you are marriage material, if you can have access to certain jobs, like it is your life, like your how you look, how you present yourself is literally linked to if you'll have a roof over your head, if you'll be able to bring food home, like it's very much tied to your socioeconomic status. And I do not blame like those women for that. I blame capitalism, but like in the West, I think what is sort of like frustrating is it's just like although I understand that like also beauty is capital in the West, I kind of feel like here it needs to be more interrogated, like why people are not questioning their own internalized, Eurocentrism or internalized colorism because it's an anti-blackness because it's like although you are maybe trying to be adjacent to what is deemed as beautiful in the Western society, you need to ask yourself why that is and if it's really worth it. Because although beauty is capital, I think it's like important, especially for people in the West, like it's to be critical of why it is you're trying to change who you are to be more adjacent to what is beauty, which is white. And I think like it's a very like bigger conversation when you think about the reasons why women do this in general. And it's definitely linked to, patriarchy and like all these things, colorism, because it's only women that feel like they have to do this. And they're also made to believe that they have to do this. And like it's just so disheartening because like it just sends a message, to like, you know, what options are left for dark skinned women? Because
Mm,
something I notice a lot is like I don't see a lot of women who are my color that often. Like most times I'll be the only dark skinned woman in a lot of black spaces, but I rarely ever see a lot of women who are my color. And it's like sometimes, a lot of people do end up bleaching. Or like another huge thing is like people will intentionally marry lighter skinned people or marry someone white so that they can avoid maybe their children bearing, what
mm,
the darker skin. And I think that's just like the idea that dark skin should be erased and that like it's an issue instead of us like talking about the fact that capitalism is the reason why we feel like dark skinned people shouldn't exist and like this desire to try to erase dark skin to become more white adjacent.
yeah. So we can look at now. I can ask the question. I mean, this is again, it's a very simplistic question, but do you think that even asking the question, I'm just like, oh, should I ask it? But do you think that we are, if we look at society and when we look at the past, we look at now, do you think that there's an improvement? Do you think we have a long way to go in order to portray blackness in a positive light? I find my question to be a little bit all over the place, but do you
No,
understand my question?
it's straightforward. It's straightforward. I get it. Yeah, like honestly, I can't say that it's changed a lot. I think we still have a long way to go because like honestly, like if we look at our everyday spaces, if we look at corporate spaces, there's no one that is my color or your color that is a woman there. That's
Yeah.
just the reality. And it's like, if you think about where darker skinned people are positioned in society, it's always at the bottom. And so it's just like the fact that this has been something that continues to perpetuate. And I think even what was like a huge shocking thing for me is when I heard that, like, big corporations or big, like, Fortune 500 companies will intentionally try to only hire black people or black women specifically if they're mixed. Like they will tell recruiters to only send in people who are mixed if they're a
Mm,
woman. And that's the only form of blackness they'll accept. And
mm,
it's just like this like colorism is so much deeper, I think, than we realize. Like it just like, it permeates in all parts of our society. It's just like it's not even just about not being able to get a date or being fetishized or hypersexualized,
mm,
but it's
mm,
like your access to high income jobs or like your access to safety. Like sometimes just being dark skinned, like you will be, treated with aggression and like you're like being safe sometimes is not something that's guaranteed depending on which space you enter. So those types of things are like a huge thing and it's like the the tie with like, dark skin and being like aggressive and violent and something that is linked to being evil and bad, well,
mm.
white is the opposite. It's like something not a lot of people have really, unpacked and like been honest about. Because I think even the way that people still deem dark skinned women as intimidating, it's like
Yes.
you don't unpack why use the word intimidating when it's just like the person is just not interacting with you like they're an open book. And it's like when black women just exist, it's very like bothersome to people, especially darker skinned women. And so
Yeah.
people will be honest with themselves and saying that out loud, like the bias against dark skinned women, or rather like their, just the negative perceptions they have of dark skinned women, them being honest about that. Not a lot of people are willing to do that because they have to accept that they are in fact racist and they are perpetuating, especially black people, they are perpetuating anti blackness by being colorist. So
So
it's just like, it's a long, long way for us to go. But I think it's just like having more open conversations, especially on different platforms like what you're doing, will create like people being more honest about like, oh, I didn't realize that this is, how I sound. Or like this is how I'm speaking about people in this way. This is how I'm viewing people of this certain shade in this way. So it's like people finally like questioning their views will take a step in the right direction.
there we go. So this is it. Honestly, it's a pleasure talking with you. I mean, I hope people who are listening are seeing that we just have the conversation and that hopefully they took something out of it, and that we can have a conversation about it without we just want people to listen to our experience, and see how important it is just to listen, And I thank you guys for watching our conversation. If you like what you saw, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to put the link to your podcasts on my how we call it again? They say the yeah on the
Description.
description box. There we go. Oh. So yeah, I'm gonna put you're gonna see all the information, and yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you are, and bye.
Bye.